All right, so once you're inside Maya, our first step always is to make a new project. Our mini room is this project folder. If we're rendering, it'll still render into that project folder regardless of what else we do on the computer, okay? So I'm gonna go to File, and I'm going to say Project Window. Okay, File, Project Window. And then in here, we tell it we're doing a brand new project, so we hit the New button, and we give it a name. So we'll call this one Sarcona_title. All right, and then make sure you put it into your work folder. It should already be kind of set up to your work folder anyway. And I'm gonna just add the Tuesday, Thursday at the end of mine just so I don't get confused. You don't need to put that there, okay? So every time you come into Maya and you're starting a brand new project, you go to File, Project Window, you tell it I'm doing a new project, give it its names. Every day after that, when you're working on a project you've already created, set your project. File, set project, click on it, okay? So it's just that same thing over and over and over again when you do that. This will eventually become second nature to what you're doing. So File, Project Window, give it a new name, make sure it's in your work folder, and then we would hit Accept. Another important thing to pay attention to also that people have done is they've actually gone through and they've set their project to their hard drive, their portable drive, and then they set it to render, and then they unplug their drive and leave. The computer's trying to write to your portable drive, so obviously it can't do that because you took it away. So we have to make sure that we set it to something else, okay? All right, so just File, Project Window, and then we set it, and then we're good, okay? And then what I'll use in the future is this project, Recent Projects on the bottom, where you can just very quickly just go to File, Recent Projects, and just choose which project you're working on, okay? So that's a nice way to be able to quickly get there. All right, so we want to create text. So under Create, we're going to go to the text option box. All right. Your grid is probably turned off right there. There we go. All right, so here's where our text is going to be. And we have to go to the option box, and we're going to type in Gotham. And obviously the word Gotham is in all caps in their example, so I want to type it in all caps. Okay, so create text option box, and then you would type in the word Gotham. Or Gotham, that's how I call it. All right.
I've never heard see that. What have you done?
So now we're going to go to the font, and we'll pick a font. Okay. Now we don't want to do anything crazy in here. The way that this is going to create a 3D surface, if we chose some crazy scripty font, it would just say, no, I can't do that, and it just wouldn't let you create a 3D version. So for now, just to make sure that everything goes good, we're just going to pick Arial. Okay. Now for your end product, we don't want to use Arial. This is the test run. This is the dry run in this, okay? Just to test out the processes as quickly as we can. Yes, ma'am.
Where is that option box?
When you go to your text, you click on that arrow.
Oh.
Okay? And then I make the size 72 just so it's bigger, but realistically we could just scale it up afterwards. So it's not a huge deal. I just like to see it bigger because I'm old and I can't see very good when it's at 36. I am old. You could also bold things. You could also make it italic. We're not going to do any of this, but you could. We're just going to leave it as, I think bold might be good. All right, so we'll leave it as bold. Okay, so I went to Arial, bold, 72, hit OK. It says Gotham. It's Arial. Okay, now the type of object we're going to create is a curves object. Okay, so see where it says curves? That's what we're going to create. So we just hit create. Okay, so now at the center-ish right side of my screen, it says Gotham. Okay, you can zoom in on it. You can click on it and hit F, and it'll frame you right to it so you can get right on top of it. What we need to do is now create a surface. All this is curves. So we need to tell Maya, hey, now that we have curves, I want to actually create a surface off of this. So I'm going to grab my G first, That's the first letter. And I'm going to switch my menu set on the top to modeling. Okay, so I grab the G, I switch my menu set to modeling, and then I'm going to go under surfaces.
Where's modeling?
Right over here on the left.
Oh.
It might already be on modeling. I changed mine for some reason. I'm going to go to surfaces, and this is the menu that allows us to take curves and make them into actual surfaces. Okay? So inside here, there's one called Bevel Plus, and I'm going to, again, go into the option box. Always go in the option box if you've never used that specific one, because you want to see what it's going to do. So I go to Surfaces, I go to Bevel Plus, and I go to its option box. Come on, Maya. And of course, it gives me an error, so I'm just going to save. It's a good time to save now. So I'm going to give it a name, Sarcona _ Gotham _01. All right, now there's only one way I know of to get my thing to work correctly, and that's to delete my preferences. So I'm just putting the word delete. What? What are you still rendering? Yes, you are. We'll stop you from rendering, and then we'll say that. There we go. All right, so my option box didn't pop up for the for that tool. I have to go into my preferences, delete my preferences, and then that's the fix for it. There is somewhere in my preferences, there's one file. If I just delete that, it'll work. I'm not going to deal with it now. Okay. So now I'm going to go back, and because I need to reset my projects, I delete my preferences. I'm going to go to set. I'm going to tell it what I'm working on. What am I working on? This, that. Title, Tuesday, Thursday, and set. Open up my file. There it is. There we go. All right, so I grab my letter G. I go to Surfaces. I go to Bevel Plus option box, and now it pops it up. Horrible walkthrough or workaround, but it works. All right, so now I have my option box here. So a Bevel Plus, there's two, just so you can see it. There is a bevel right here and a Bevel Plus. Bevel is just flat. Like if I wanted this to just be square, it would make a bevel. I don't want that. Bevel Plus is like the fancy version. So that's what we want. So some of the options here are bevel width, bevel depth, extrude distance, create caps. All of these we can change after the fact. What I want to do is click on my output options, okay? And on my output options, this is what it's going to output to. Now there's two kinds of surfaces that all of these will output to. One is a NURBS, the other one is a polygon. Do you remember what kind of surfaces we used for our room? Polygons. That's what we're going to use for this too, because it gives us the ability to very nicely texture our stuff. Now this down here is stuff we can change after the fact. Now what it's going to do is it takes this letter G and it's going to create a surface around that letter G. And if, let's say, it comes out blocky, we can go into these samples and spans and spread these out. Make more of these things here to fill in that to make it look nice. Okay? So all we need to do is make sure it says polygon, and then we'll hit bevel or bevel. Okay? So we should have a pretty decent looking G. Now, let me show you why it did. So I'm going to go back in here and type in Gotham. I'm going to go back to here and pick Arial. I'm going to make sure I type the word Arial. There we go. Normal. Okay. Then I'm going to grab the letter G. I'm going to go to Surfaces, and I'm going to go to Bevel Plus. Nope, there's just something wrong with you guys. Yeah. No. So what happens is your letter is super tiny. Okay, that's all that happened. So it's trying to create this letter as a super tiny letter. But it's fine. You can leave it like that, and we can adjust it. All right? So if I go to my attribute editor, and this is where you're going to learn that my settings are always not going to be your settings, and we need to figure out what it is you changed or what changes we can make to correct that. Okay? So under your attribute editor, remember Control A to get the attribute editor up. one of your tabs on top is Bevel Plus. Okay? So when you're on Bevel Plus, you have things like bevel width, bevel depth, and extrude distance. So if I cranked my settings up, you can see how I can very quickly kind of destroy what this is looking like. Okay? My nice G now looks really blobby looking. Okay? So because your letters might be smaller, you may have to go to a smaller width, a smaller depth, and a smaller extrude distance possibly. Why it's doing it, who knows, who cares. All we need to do is know how to fix it. So in your polygon options, mine's set to extrusion section here and curve span there. Okay, so it says sampling, extrusion section, curve span. And as I increase these, you can see how it could adjust those settings.
Oh, I am lost.
Helps. So I'm going to go to my WordPad just so you can see what I'm typing in here. And what I want to do is make sure that my polygon output is set to sampling. Spell it right. To curve span 12.
Yeah, mine's on sampling of what's in the
Yeah,
thing.
like I put mine on count.
But if it's on
Right.
count,
See, mine works on count 2, which is just this number. It just uses that one number to get it.
See, that's what mine looks like. Go all the way.
All the way like that.
That's what mine looks
Right.
like.
So if you change it to sampling, though,
When I do sampling, that's what it looks like.
this is what it looks like.
No.
When you do sampling, it does the other one.
It looks like what yours does in count.
Okay. So this is where it, and it's very weird that it does it, but it's just kind of like something in there is not the same from mine to yours, even though we've done pretty much the same thing. So for most things, I don't really even pay attention to that. I just say something went wrong. I know where to fix it, polygon output options, and then I just play with the settings to get it to work. Okay? So now if I write down what these settings are, and I write down what these settings are, so I'm going to also go to my bevel width and say 0.050, bevel depth 0.050, extrude distance 0.291. Okay? So this allows me to basically go into my options now and set those same things for all of my other letters. That way I don't have to worry about, you know, this letter being thicker or different shape than the other ones. Okay? So I did these three, bevel width, depth, and extrude distance. And then I also did the polygon output, sampling, extrusion, curve span 12. Okay? Now I also want to look at the shape of this. So right now, this shape, this is the bevel. So you remember on our desk when we had that perfectly square shape and we added a bevel and it made it kind of rounded a little bit? Okay, or on our chairs too. So that's where this this bevel plus gives us this little shape here. And we can customize what that shape looks like. If we go to more arrows in our attribute editor, there's an outer style curve. And all we have to do is go to that, and we can choose different outer style curves. Let me zoom out so we can see better. So you see how I can choose different options here to get different looks to this. I think I like convex or concave out best. Or convex crease, that looks fancy. Okay. So I'm going to choose, let me go back to concave out. I'm going to use concave out. I like that one. Okay. Now again, don't spend too long picking this. Just grab one of them just so we can see what options we would typically change. As I look at this, I'm looking at not only which one looks nice, but when I light this, which one's going to pick up the light the best. And something like concave out, if I were to shine a light in here, that light would basically get trapped inside here, and then it would also pick up right along that highlight. So that backlight we were talking about, that would pick up really nicely on something like this. If this was straight out, like that, it would basically just be this, like, you know, pick it up a little bit, but not much. convex crease. This looks a little bit more playful than Gotham. I don't really like that one. So
like spikes or something.
not spikes. Batman would not spikes. All right, concave out. Concave out. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna again write that number down. Concave out. Okay, so then I can go to my letter O, and I grab both of them. I grab the outer and the inner, and I go back to surfaces, bevel plus option box, and then I pull my WordPad up and throw it on the other screen, and I just type in my settings. So my bevel width was 0.050, the depth was 0.050, and the extrude distance was 0.291. If your scale is bigger than mine, these numbers are going to be horrible. If your scale is a lot smaller than mine, again, these numbers are going to be horrible. So I chose a 72 font, I dropped mine in and didn't touch anything else. That's my numbers for my specific scene. Don't look at my numbers and say I'm going to use his. Find numbers that look good. That's what you should be after. Okay? Yes, ma'am. If we look at the letter, do you see how my O, when I clicked on it, my O in the center is white and my O on the outside is green? Okay? So Maya needs to know what's the inside and what's the outside. Because just as easily as it's creating this O to fill in this area, it could create some other random shape to do something else. Okay? Imagine we didn't have just 2 curves here. Imagine we had like 30 curves to create a shape. So if I do this and hit apply, it doesn't work. Okay? The white being selected first, or the center being selected first, and the outer being selected second, that doesn't go with it. So I have to select the outer first, then shift click the inner, and then my settings will work. Okay? So I grab the outer first, shift click the inner, and then I can hit apply, and then it'll work. And then apply will keep, oops, I had to make sure I choose my rest of my settings. Concave out. You guys distracted me. Polygon output sampling. And this is complete. 2 and 12. Okay. If I hit apply, it'll just do it here. Now, I can also just look at it and say, oh, that looks horrible. It was span. And then I can just grab the next letter and hit apply. Grab the next letter, hit apply. Grab the next letter, outside first, then inside, hit apply. Grab the next letter, hit apply, and then close it. Okay? All right. So once we have our wording here, what we should try to do is put a texture on this. Now before, what we did is we did all of our modeling, and then we added our textures, and then we added our lights into the scene, and then we added our camera. It doesn't matter the order, okay? Obviously you have to model before you texture stuff, but after you've modeled it, you can do whatever you want. In a bigger environment, we may even have someone who models very low-res stuff as kind of placeholders, and then they do the camera work, or they work on textures, or they work on lights, and then when someone else is done with the actual model, they'll drop it into the finished scene and put it all together. All right, so we're going to put a texture on this. It should be pretty much the same texture on all of these. All right, so we're going to grab all of the letters. Now, curves cannot be textured, okay? So it doesn't matter if we grab them too, but just so you're aware, there's nothing to do with curves. So if you grabbed the curve, where is he at? Right here. That's not grabbing the letter. I actually have to grab the piece of geometry letter or just marquee this whole mess. All right, now, there is a trick to this, because if I right click and I go down to assign new material, what that's going to do is it's going to assign it to the last object I have selected. Because I'm right clicking, it only does that last object, okay? Now, if I want to do all the objects at the same time, I hold down the space bar, and then you'll see that there's a lighting and shading on the bottom left, okay? So we hold the space bar to bring up the hotbox, hold down the left mouse on the lighting and shading, and then we go to assign new material. Okay? Now what kind of material are we going to choose? The Mila one, yep. So under mental ray, we're going to choose the Mila. Okay? So hotbox, which is the spacebar thing. We went to lighting and shading, assign new material, and from the list, we chose Mental Ray and Mila, okay? And then inside here, we have 2 tabs. The left tab we don't care about. We care about the right tab, which is the actual material. So we're gonna rename this Gotham Material. Remember, no fancy characters, nothing funny in the naming, just Gotham Material. Okay, so Gotham Material. Now we said in the original Gotham one that they had kind of like a metal patchwork material. Looks like maybe it's made of like sheets of metal. So we're gonna go to textures.com and grab a metal material. We're gonna crash the servers. Everyone's gonna go at one time. I log in. Boom. Okay. And then of course we'll search for metal and we'll try to find something. Again, don't spend hours and hours looking for this. All we need to do is find something that looks close enough and use that. For now, I'm just going to grab this one. This one looks like an okay one. Okay. Now, again, this is a placeholder. I can always come back and change this file. I can go into Photoshop and tweak the coloring, tweak the look of it, grab a new image, drop it inside there. There's nothing stopping me from changing this later on. So don't think that it has to be perfect this first time. And then make sure when you download it that you put it into the correct folder. I'm just going to drop it on my desktop for now, and then I will put it in the correct spot. I don't want that. Save as. Alright, and this is where I switch to Firefox because this does not want to open. Alright, so I downloaded it. I'm going to put it into my 2510, into work, into my title, into source images, and just paste it right inside source images. Don't get confused with the source folder. This is our project folder's source images. And then if you remember how we loaded it before, back in Maya, we're just going to click the little mappy button next to color, go to our file, go to the folder, and grab that metal bear. And we'll save again. Save all the time. Okay. Remember, 6 is the show texture button, which is this little texture button right here. Sometimes on the computers, they will just like, I don't like textures and just crash out on you. So you want to save often when you're doing that. Okay. Now the texture looks horrible. If we look at my texture on here, this is what mine looks like. Okay. So Maya doesn't care that I only want to use, I don't even know if this is metal. Is this metal? It's like,
I know.
yeah, that's what it looks like. I looked up metal barrel or bear, but that's what came up. Whatever. I can always adjust it. It doesn't care that I don't want this black line in here. It doesn't care that I don't want it to look repetitive. What Maya does is it just says, here's the texture. That's how it's going to get placed on each one of these objects. Okay? So there's a, on these surfaces, there's actually something that tells these surfaces how to look when there is a texture on them. Okay? And it's called the U and the V, the UV. If you right-clicked, you don't have to do this. If you right click, there's a UV option off to the side, and this allows us to select those and to manipulate those, okay? When we had our pictures on the wall and they didn't come in correctly, and we went up to the UV menu and we told it to planar map, what it does is it basically takes that picture, and just like the projector here, it projects the picture onto that specific item. And when we choose planar mapping, it shoots it flat, just like flat against the object in one direction. If we chose something else like spherical, it would be kind of like, you know, you've seen those spherical projectors where they project more like an arc to them. So it would project like that. They also have cylindrical, so it would wrap it around the item, okay? So for this specific case, like a T or an H, it's not really like a good choice available. It's just like there's no specific item I could choose for that. I also have to fix this real quick. There's a small tangent just to add some divisions here. Extrusion section, there we go. Because I want to do this stuff, because if you look, as I adjust this, it adjusts my texture. Okay, so I'm just adjusting these real quick, just so everything looks nice there. Nice there. Okay, so that should be good. This one should be fine. Okay, so I forgot to change that. All right, so now all I have to do is choose a mapping method that allows me to basically take this picture and place it on this item very, very nicely. Now there is, under UV, there's an automatic one. And what this does is if I let go of it on automatic and zoom out, it takes my picture and it shoots it or shines it from different angles at these items. So if one of the faces of my item is facing this direction, it'll shoot the picture this way. If it's facing this direction, it shoots the picture that way. If it's facing this way, it shoots it this way or that way or whatever, okay? So that's usually a good one to go with for some organic type shape like this, where it doesn't really matter which direction it comes from. Okay, so I just grabbed all the letters and hit automatic, and you can see how now it looks like it's okayly laid out. It's not perfect, it's just okay. All right. Now I'm going to also jump into Photoshop on mine, just because I also want you to see that it's not going to be a click these buttons and it's a good process. Sometimes we have to go through and tweak what we have. That was the fastest Photoshop's ever opened. Okay, so I clicked my objects, I went to automatic, and I saw that that black line still was there. So my only way to kind of get rid of that black line for good is just to go into Photoshop with that image and just eliminate it. Just crop it out. So if I go to my crop tool and I pull it in like this, like that, and pull this side in maybe like this, and then hit enter. Now it's going to crop that black line out of there, okay? And if I don't like stuff like this, scuff marks on these metal padded room things, I could use things like the clone stamp and use my clicker here and then come down to about there and then just erase that area. Usually what we want to do is eliminate the look of this thing being repeated over and over and over again. So if we get something where, like let's say we have a tree and there's a big dark vein driving down the middle of the tree, and we reuse that texture over and over and over again, you're going to see that big dark vein all over your entire scene. So you usually want to eliminate those kinds of things. So now that this is here, I'm just going to save it. And because I'm saving it as something different, I'm going to save it as a TIFF. And I'm going to call it padded room, just so I know what it is. If I save this as a JPEG will lose quality every time I save it, okay? So imagine you have a crystal clear image that you downloaded and it looks beautiful, but then you change some stuff and you saved it. And you change some stuff and you saved it. Every time you save it, you're worsening the quality of it, and there's nothing you can do to get it back. So just like when we're in After Effects and we're choosing QuickTime H.264, JPEG does the same thing. TIFF does not. I could save a TIFF 7 trillion times and it'll never lose quality, okay? So I usually save my textures that I've edited as TIFFs or IFs. It's another format we'll get into. And because I changed that, I need to go back into here. Here's my Gotha material. Here's my color. Notice that my color doesn't have the checkerboard because I have something connected to it now, there's an arrow. So I'm going to click on the arrow, click on the folder, and then find my new texture, which should, if you look at it, does not have that black line anywhere on it. Okay. Now let's say I also wanted this texture. Right now it's pretty big. These pads or squares are pretty big on here. I want these to be smaller. Okay. So the only way for me to take these pads that are big and get them smaller is to repeat them. If I have more pads or more textures, I'll have smaller pads. So I'm going to go back to my Gotham material, go back to my color box, and then here is my file. So this is the file I brought in. The other tab is the place 2D texture. So this is a way for us to control how many times it's repeating. So if I went to, let's say, 3 and 3, now you see how I get more repetitions in here. So it doesn't look like I have these huge tiles on there. Imagine you had a wood floor and all you could find was a picture that was this big of wood and you stretched it out over your entire floor. It's going to look ridiculous. But you repeat it and it'll look really awesome because it looks like actual grains of wood. Okay? Are you on your file?
On the letter?
Right, you have the letter clicked.
Yeah.
You went to the arrow here, and then you went to your file. It should be there. Okay? There's a place 2D texture for every item that comes in. Okay? Just so you can see this new window, this little round ball next to our render settings is the hypershade. And all the materials that we set up, all the shaders that we set up, are found inside here. So here's my Gotham material, and I want to click this button, which basically just shows me everything that's connected to it. Okay? So this is going to be confusing to look at, but we'll just step through it. So here is our Mila material, our Gotham material is right here. So our shader uses some fancy stuff. We can ignore this right now. We can ignore that right now. Here's my padded room TIFF. So this is my file, and then connected to my file is this place 2D texture. If I added another file, it would have its own place 2D texture on it. Okay? If I added 30 files, each one would have their own place 2D texture. So you may use different place 2D textures depending on what you're doing. Okay, so that's the hypershade window. All right. So now that we have this, now what I want to do is I want to animate a camera moving towards it or animate the letters coming at it. I think it's going to be easier to animate a camera going towards it because otherwise the lights that we set up may get a bit brighter as it gets closer to the lights, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to animate a camera going towards it, and maybe it'll just kind of like open up a little bit. So we create a brand new camera under Panels, Perspective, and go to New. Okay, Panels, Perspective, New. This window down here, not the windows up there, not the menu bar up here, it's this menu bar right there. Okay, and we want to rename our camera right away. So right now it's called Perspective 1. I want to click on it and call this Render Cam. That way we know exactly what the camera is going to be called. We know which camera is going to be moving. All right, so I need to see how this is framing out. So I'm going to, of course, click that blue circle right under the word show. So where this show is, there's a blue circle. I click the blue circle. Okay, and that blue circle shows me this is what's going to render. So as I start to line up my wording, I want to make sure that this is all set up nice and neat. Okay, so if we looked at the word Gotham again, it kind of starts off like back here, and then we go right through the T and the H. Okay, so I'm going to do this actually a little bit backwards. I'm going to set up the end of this first, and then set up the start of it. Okay, and that's a common thing that you will see people do. All right, so I'm going to go right here, get these kind of big, and I think, let me try some stuff just to see if we can play with this. Your camera works just like a regular camera. So you know how you have a zoom lens, you can zoom in on stuff or zoom out on things. Different lenses cause different looks of your items. So over here on the right in the channel box it says focal length 35. I'm going to change it to 10 just so you can see what it's going to do. But now as I get closer to it, do you see how the word seems to get bigger? Okay, here it is at 35. And you can see that the word overall just looks very flat. It doesn't really look like I'm getting a lot of perspective as I get closer. But when I set this to, I'll exaggerate it further. I'll set it to 4. And look at how these words look huge now that I'm getting next to it. That letter looks really deep. So I think 10 is actually a pretty decent number to go with. Okay, so I'm going to set my focal length to 10. And I'm going to set up my center of my camera to right between the T and the H. Okay, so like about there I think would be good. All right, so how long did we say this was going to be? We didn't say. 7 seconds is actually pretty good. The original one is like 4 or 5 seconds long, so we want it to be a little bit longer than that. Yes, ma'am.
Where did you get the shape thing?
Make sure you have your camera selected. You deselected your camera, so you have to click on this button here. Select camera. And then you can go to your focal length and change that to 10. Alright, so if we're going with 7 seconds for this, I'm going to pull up a calculator, and we're going at 24 frames per second times 7 seconds. That's how many frames we're going to have for this. 168. Okay? How many frames do we currently have on our timeline? 120. So we come down here, there's two numbers. There's a 120 and a 200. I'm just going to change both of these to 168. Okay? The inner number, this first 168 here and this first 1 there, that's our work area, just like After Effects. We can zoom in on a certain spot. So I just set these both to 168 because that's how long our animation is. So I'm going to go to 168 in my timeline. So I just go to the very end. And I need to set a keyframe on my camera to say, at 168, I want my camera right there. So we hit S for set a key. Oops. Make sure I'm in my viewport and hit S. Now we should see all of our stuff turn red over there, and down here on the bottom it should say result 10. Okay? If you don't see that, click in your viewport. Okay? So click in this top bar and then hit S, and then you should see all your stuff turn red when you hit S. Okay? What happens is, as we're down here and I hit S, it doesn't register that I'm hitting S because it still thinks that I'm down here in the bar. All right, so now we're going to go back to frame 1, and we'll zoom out. And then we'll hit S when we think we're at a good spot. So I think that's probably a good spot to start. Remember that the first little bit of this is going to be in darkness, and then we're going to brighten it up. So we don't want to just fill the frame. We want to actually push it back a little bit more into the frame. Okay? So the first part of this is going to be dark, and then we'll turn the lights on. We'll see the Gotham. We'll have the red and blue lights flashing on it, and then we get this. Okay? So there's our Gotham text.
I have done that in reverse.
Now in any of these keyframes, if you accidentally set something wrong, like if I set up 1 wrong, I can just go to where I want 1 to be, and then just hit S and reset it, and it'll just overwrite that keyframe. Okay? There we go. All right. So now that we have our model, we have our texture, and we have our animation, now we can add the lighting to this. Okay? So the first thing I want to do with my lights is I'm still going to use area lights for this, for the first part of this. Okay? So I'm going to create an area light. And what I don't want to do is mess up my camera. So as I move around my camera, you can see how the perspective is really distorted on this because we set that focal length to 10. So I'm going to switch to my other camera. So I go to Panels, Perspective, back to Perspective. And then I can move around without having that big distortion. Okay? So I'm just going to move and rotate this light to get it kind of lined up with what I want to shine on. So remember, we have that little highlight that's happening from the back of this, where the light's just catching a little bit of that back side of the surface and kind of giving it the edges a little bit of color. That's what I'm going for here. So I'm just putting this light behind it because I want to basically cast some light along the sides of this, just to help illuminate the sides of each letter and make them pop a little bit more.
I don't have that.
Did you go to Create Lights, Area Light?
Yeah.
All right, if we were to hit the render button now, what do we get? Black screen. Why are we getting a black screen? Mental Ray, right? So right now we're set to render in Maya software. So we have to make sure we're choosed on Mental Ray and then hit the render button. And then we should be able to see what our light is doing. Okay? So remember, the goal of this is that we want to create a nice, basically like a silhouette of the lettering. Now part of this is not going to work. Okay? Now could you guess why part of this isn't going to work very good?
You're in like an empty space. Is that going to affect all this?
It will. I'm over here, so it's not going to affect it too much. If I shined on it from this side here, we'd actually see, the whole thing lit up. And you might actually see why this isn't going to work very good.
In your render view, click when you render. It's middle.
Okay, so you see how dark these are here? Each letter is casting a shadow on the letter next to it. Okay, so what happens is our light has to be set up perfectly so that it doesn't cast a shadow on each letter around the sides. So one thing I can do is I can turn off my shadow on this light. So if I go to the attribute editor for this, I go down to shadows and I scroll down to use ray trace and just uncheck it, I won't get any shadows from this light, which is fine because all I'm using this for is a way to kind of light up the sides. And if you look at it now, I get pretty much what I wanted with that. And this is from my perspective camera. I'm going to right click on my little render view guy and say, let me see it from my render cam. All right. Now I can tweak this further, just reposition my light to really try to get that.
Wait, how do you do it from the render cam?
Right click right on top of that viewport thing, or the render button here. So I can keep tweaking that light's position until it's set up. Now it might be just a few minutes to do that to get it all set up. One little trick for this is if you think of your light, you have a source for your light and you have what you want your light to point at, okay? So if you have your light selected and you hit T, you'll get these two items. This one, that doesn't look like it's connected to anything, is basically what your light's pointing at. So if I know I want my light to point at my items, I just keep these here. And then I can just move my light and change the angle of how the light's hitting my objects. And then I can go back to my render and just test it out again to see if I'm getting any closer.
What'd you do to make that little focus like
You just hit T. T. And that way I can move one right on top of the lettering, and then another one I could just keep moving the other one around. So I think I liked it better when it was a little bit further back. Nope. And sometimes you might just need an extra light. I think in this case I may need an extra light because I really want to grab a little bit more highlight in these areas. I don't know why I keep spinning around to the front. I'm not doing the front. I'm doing a different camera. Actually, that looks pretty good there. Okay, just getting a little bit of highlight on there. I'll probably add another light into the scene just so I'm getting a little bit more vignetting or silhouetting around those pieces. Okay. All right, so let's save our work. All right, so real quick, I'm going to recap what we just did. We went to our create, we made our text. We typed in Gotham, we used Arial, we used curves, and then that gave us these guys here. Okay, so it gave us each letter. Then we went under surfaces and we went to bevel plus. We chose our settings and we created a bevel. We assigned a brand new material to it, which was a Mila. We click the map here, we click the file, we click the folder, and we added our material to it. It didn't look nice, it looked horrible. So then we grabbed it and then we did an automatic mapping to get it to lay out a bit nicer. Then we saw the layout was good, we just needed more of these inside the scene. So then we went back to our Mila, back to our arrow, back to our place 2D texture, and we changed the repeats on it so that we would get more items inside there. Then we created a camera. I'm going to use this as my camera. And we selected the camera. We chose 10 as our focal length. We set up what it's supposed to look like at 168, something like that. Blue circle on. We went back to frame 1. We zoomed out. Set a key. There it is. Okay. And then we created a new light under Create Lights, Area Light. And then we just positioned it to kind of help give us that little vignette silhouette type thing around these edges. Okay? And that's all we've done. Now obviously it took a lot longer to do that because we're doing it as a group and we're kind of stair-stepping this. But once you understand the steps of this, it's literally going to be that quick. It's going to be, I need text, here it is. I need a texture, there it is. I need lights, here it is. I need a camera, I need animation. All of these things will come very quickly doing it over and over and over again. So